Hello and welcome to this MSP Voice webinar brought to you by Cloudberry. So cloudberrylab.com if you want to check out Cloudberry Backup for MSPs. Today, I'm happy to be joined by Piers Mummery. Will take us through back to basics.
Doug, hi, can you hear me? I'm catching every other word then, so hopefully my audio is okay. Doug, apologies, the audio is strange at my end. I can't hear you at all. Okay, well, I'll crack on in the hope that you can actually hear me. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Piers Mummery, and I'm going to share a little bit about myself with you. So first of all, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been involved in many businesses over the years, and I specialize in growing companies through business acceleration. I focus on the technology sector, and as I said, I've got about 30 years experience. I'm based in Chicago, and my business Venator is an accelerator consultancy, and I focus on the MSP and technology markets only. So I want to talk to you today about the back to basics approach that I believe the technology and MSP market requires. And I want to share a few facts with you about the US market. And some of these statistics you may well know already. But as a marketplace, there are 30 million SMBs in the US, and the industry itself is worth a phenomenal value. But of course, there are 56,000 operators in this market.
There we go.
The average SMB is getting 23 emails and 5 phone calls a day from somebody offering IT support. So that means your customers are getting hit every single day by competitors. With an average IT relationship, which is about 3.6 years long, what that means is if you've got a target market of about 5,000 customers, there's between 25 and 30 of those companies will be signing a new deal every single week. And that means effectively this week, there's around 5 people today that are going to sign a new IT contract. So the question is, where and why are you missing out? Given the opportunity that we have in the market, I want to talk to you about some of the methods you can use to market your business. You'll be thankfully grateful that I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can see there's a huge opportunity out there with lots of different routes to market. And I want to focus on just a few of these. So there's no excuse really for not marketing your business today. However, I do believe it's time to get back to basics. And the basics of good sales and marketing for the MSP sector is about putting strong foundations in place. And there are really 4 parts to that. Looking at the marketplace that you address, the products that you're taking to market, what your propositions are, and your approach to that sector. Key to that is then to prioritize all the things within sales and marketing. And again, I'm going to focus on 4 particular areas today that I think are critical to the success of marketing for MSPs. One is toolkits, the second is your target audience, the proposition, and then of course a database that you use to hold your prospects and customers. So let's look at the sales kit to start with. There are a number of things that I believe a sales toolkit requires. Firstly is a consistent and clear description of the company. And I tend to break it into a couple of different areas here. Firstly, a 3-word description of your business, followed by a sentence describing your business, and then 50, 100, and 150 words describing what your business is about. The second part of this is a set of value propositions and then product and service definitions. The value propositions are very crucial because this is what you're promising your market you're going to do. Further to that, you then need a defined target audience with a set of customer personas. So you need to define who is your customer and who you want to go after. Critically, and I talk a lot about this in MSP marketing, is differentiators. Technology marketing is quite a difficult thing to differentiate on many different levels, but it's important that within the sales toolkit, you've got something that differentiates you from your competitors. I also believe that a website and social presence is very valuable, and particularly today with LinkedIn, in a B2B environment, it's a crucial way of driving business. You'll need company presentations and materials. So a pitch deck describing your company and what you do. You might want to have case studies, testimonials, data sheets, a master service agreements, maybe a pricing calculator, various contracts, and of course SLAs. All of these things are the things you take to your customer. A CRM platform is crucial. It sounds obvious, but many companies I come across don't actually use a CRM platform. They're working on spreadsheets and boxes of names and addresses. I've mentioned case studies and testimonials, which are crucial because word of mouth marketing is one of the biggest areas in business-to-business marketing. And of course, a client list. It's important you can be able to talk about your customers and what you do for them, showing empathy with your own customers. Another area which is also quite crucial is white papers and thought leadership, providing information to customers to show that you are a subject matter expert in your area. So you should be talking on LinkedIn, you should be doing podcasts, webinars, anything that creates some thought leadership in your specific area. You need to have a reporting and measurement system in place so you can monitor where leads are coming from. And of course, a focus internally with a team, one, maybe two, or a big team of people who are accountable for your sales. So that would be the basics in a sales toolkit. And
Piers, just a quick question. I noticed your last one is an accountable and active sales resource. What if you're just doing this by yourself and you don't have a sales team? I mean, obviously you still need all these things, but is it still possible to do all this with owner operator?
Very much so. I think the key there is to demonstrate discipline to yourself and hold yourself accountable, which is self-targets, telling other people around your organization what you're doing, what you're focusing on. And as I say, being accountable to that, but actually making sure you're the sole focus. One your own sales and marketing.
Okay.
The next area I want to talk about is target audience. And fundamentally, the target audience really comes around three things. You've got to define a criteria as to who you want to go after. And generally speaking, there are three different things. You can look at the company size, which is typically, I would suggest, based around the number of employees in an organization. The industry type, so what line of business do you want to target? Do you have any specific vertical markets? Do you have a better level of skill in? And of course, location is a key one as well. You then need to define your contact levels. Who are you talking to in these companies? And again, that will depend very much on the type of criteria for company size and industry types. The bigger the company, the broader the C-suite. If you're looking at SMBs, which a lot of the MSP market tends to target, you might be dealing with owner managers and CEOs, occasionally CFOs. But defining the contact level is very important as well. And if you're able to then build up a profile around your customer audience and look at the environments, so the workplace type, are you talking about a secure, compliant area, perhaps a hospital or a financial institution? Is it a general office or a factory? That has quite a bearing on what type of IT technology they will deploy. Do they have an on-prem solution or is it cloud-based? What platforms they're using? What technologies? So getting an idea of the environment is very important, but it's quite difficult to build that information. And then you've got to start thinking about where you get your data source from. Do you build it or do you buy it? But fundamentally, building your target audience from a data point of view is a crucial step. Developing a proposition. This is an area a lot of people struggle with, but I want to just walk you through.
Welcome to the internet, my friend. How can I help you?
I'm interested in upgrading my 28.8 kilobaud internet connection to a 1.5 megabit fiber optic T1 line. Will you be able to provide an IP router that's compatible with my token ring Ethernet LAN configuration?
Can I have some money now?
So that's obviously a joke, but of course you can see that there are a lot of people out there who tell and don't sell, and they're listing features. They're not really sure what a proposition is, and fundamentally a proposition has to be based around the reasons why people buy. And in technology, people buy for two reasons. It's either relieving pain or gaining pleasure. This little image here will explain how this works. So we're talking about your products and services here on the left, which will then have either gain creators or pain relievers. Marrying that up to what the customer does in terms of their job, they will then decide whether they're getting gains or pains from that. So that's the basis of how to build the starting point for a proposition. And within that, you need to ask two key questions to yourself, which is, what is it that you do that relieves the customer's pain or problem? Or what is it that you do that can make the customer's life easier? And there are lots of ways you can do this. Fundamentally, of course, technology really only has two core benefits to it. It either saves money or it increases your efficiency and productivity in what the client does. So some tips to remember here is that all buying is based on emotion and psychology. Depending on how that person perceives their own circumstances, maybe what happens to them on the day, it's very much an emotional decision, so long as the technology does what it's supposed to do. Of course, no one will ever buy without a need, and needs will either be perceived or real. And increasingly in the technology market, there's a lot of perceived needs out there. So somebody thinks this is what I should be having. But as the experts, you need to come in as an MSP and use your expertise to drive through to the real needs of what a customer is looking for. Buyers will always buy benefits and not features. Feature bashing is something I see a lot of in the MSP world. Most of your customers at the user level won't understand a lot of the features. They're not familiar with the acronyms. So you've got to be able to look as to what the benefits are of the services you offer. So one of the things you can do, a little tip there, is turning a feature into a benefit by stating which means that. So for example, if you're going to do a dark web scan, saying that to a customer may not mean anything, but if you say which means that, we can find out potentially where your passwords have been breached online. That's another example. I want to talk to you a little bit about, here's an example of a proposition. This is not a real one, so it's not taken from an existing client. But you'll be able to see there, a highly local, experienced, established provider of cloud-based IT and support in Oregon. We work through personal trust with owner-manager businesses as a professional outsourced IT partner through a dedicated team of service technicians and client managers, providing seamless, full, secure, protected IT infrastructure. Within that, there are 12 intrinsic drivers for the value proposition, and I've highlighted those. And these are the words that will sit within your proposition that you will then start to develop, as I said, driving your own personal proposition around. I'll come back to the point I mentioned about differentiators, because again, a lot of these are quite hard to differentiate. However, within this, there are actually three which I would term to be unique and differentiated. And one of the obvious ones is local. So if you're a local IT support company, you will be able to capitalize on that and give yourself a point of difference from somebody else because you know your local audience. Equally, an established provider will show that you've got subject matter expertise. You are a business with heritage. There are a lot of new companies, particularly in cybersecurity, but by being an established provider, again, that's a differentiated proposition. And personal trust we put in there. Trust is intrinsic in anything you do in relationships anyway, but then they have a personal trust within that. So you're working with owner-manager businesses. That could be a differentiator as well. I want to just show you a couple of examples of propositions from other companies, not necessarily in the IT space, but you might get the idea. Here's a proposition from Slack: be more productive at work with less effort. Short, sharp, simple. The smartest way to get around, you may guess, is Uber. Experience is the product. Everyone knows Apple, and that was the iPhone's value proposition. Remember everything, Evernote. Very simple, all encapsulating, very authoritative proposition. And send better email is MailChimp. So you can get some idea that different companies in different sectors, they're punchy, they're short, but it actually just encapsulates everything that brand and that business is about.
Yeah, and Piers, I think earlier you said that you're going to have multiple ones, right? So you're going to have very short ones like these. You're going to have longer ones that will encapsulate more and more information as you go along.
That's correct, Doug. I mean, it's very unlikely you're going to have one value proposition because of the multitude of technologies you're offering. So you would build, so this would be a more corporate proposition, but you would then build specific ones around, if you've got a particular line of business application, you can talk about vertical market expertise. Mm-hmm. And you just need to have a range of propositions which you would bring out when you're talking to your customers.
Okay.
In terms of MSP marketing, I mean, there are some core ingredients, and I mentioned this about this differentiators. I hate to say it, but the technology market is a Me Too industry. You have got to be able to stand out from the crowd. From a customer's point of view or a prospect's point of view, if they're sitting there with 3 or 4 MSPs in front of them, they're going to want to know, what do you do differently to anybody else, and why are you better than anybody else? So there are 6 key needs here. And again, this will help in developing the proposition, which is fundamentally a buyer of IT is buying peace of mind. And this applies generally in purchasing anyway, but somebody who wants to buy a product, and particularly technology and managed services, is buying peace of mind. They just want it to work. So their key need is de-risking the purchase. They want to make sure that it's got scalability and future-proofed. And obviously cloud services is a great proposition around that. Automatically, trust and integrity are very key and core to anything that you do. If you can't be honest and open and straightforward, you shouldn't be in business, full stop. You'll need to demonstrate competency, so your customer, again, for that peace of mind, wants to know that you guys can deliver what you say you can, and you can meet their needs. And one of the big things, particularly within the support side, is the responsiveness. People want to know that you're available to them, sometimes on a 24/7 basis, but more often than not, they do want to know that you'll respond quickly to their needs. And exactly as you said there, Doug, a mix of propositions, you can build a number of propositions around that, all of which is aimed at meeting the needs, these 6 needs here. So in terms of marketing basics, again, I'm a great advocate of marketing. I've been in marketing for many years, but I'm not a great advocate of very complicated marketing. I keep it simple. So good marketing should be at the core of your business. A lot of MSPs are technology driven, which is fine, but I think you should place equal emphasis on the marketing and sales in order to get that out to market. Good marketing is also about taking action. Lots of talk, that's fine, but you actually got to go take action and make things happen. The devil is in the detail in marketing as well. It can be quite a complicated process, but it's important to make sure you do get down to the details of things. And equally, the execution, it's not as easy as it seems sometimes. Putting an email campaign together actually has about 21 different steps involved. So you've got to make sure that you can execute your marketing very well. Measurement is key, so making sure that you can respond. You'll generate response, you'll generate a stimulus from the activity you do, and you've got to be able to work out what works best for you. And then often there's an adage which is repetition creates reputation, which is if you find something that works, do more of it and keep doing more of it. So being consistent with your message is a very key thing. And also I mentioned about simplicity. I'm very keen on keeping things simple in marketing. One of the things you can do is, you may or may not have heard of the 4 Ps of marketing. This was developed years and years ago. I think it was David Ogilvy that developed it. The modern marketing world now talks about the 9 Ps of marketing. I don't believe that. At the end of the day, 4 things. The product. Have a clear proposition as to what your product does. Have a value-driven price for it. So making sure that you can identify that if a customer pays something, they're going to derive more value from it than they bought it for. How and where you're going to promote your products is very key. And something a lot of people overlook is what I call the customer touch points, which is how the customer actually consumes the product and service. What's their experience? And we talk a lot about customer experience and customer service, but remember perhaps in the MSP world that sometimes it's the users who are the customers. So the user experience of IT deployment is a direct measurement of how good your service and quality of product actually is. So just make sure you understand that.
Yeah, the other question I know a lot of folks have too, you think marketing, you think expense, right? It's like, you have to have a marketing budget. It has to be huge if you want to do good marketing. But I think there's a lot of ways that you can do marketing that don't require necessarily money outlay, but might just be a little bit more time and effort on your part in order to do it effectively.
Well, absolutely. I think the biggest investment in marketing is time and effort, as you just said. Of course, you can go and employ a marketing agency, and they can provide, all manner of campaign services. And so, there are some areas which are not unavoidable, but certainly are worth investing in. So, good design is worth spending money on. Good data is worth spending money on. And I also think a website, having a really good, well-organized, well-structured website that's, optimized online. those are the things you should invest money in. But the biggest expense in marketing is often media. So if you're thinking of advertising, advertising space costs a lot of money. And I think in the B2B space, what I call guerrilla marketing, which is your time, your effort, and real, sort of flywheel marketing. Basically, you just do the same things over and over again, talking to people, getting out to shows, materials, meeting people. That's good marketing. So a couple of top tips I want to sort of throw at you. Yes, you need a target audience of usable contacts. And I use the word usable because there's a lot of data out there, a lot of it you can't actually use. Having a company name is great, but if you don't have any contact names or email addresses or phone numbers, it's probably going to be quite useless. Identify companies by size, by the number of employees. I think to put that into technology, you'll find the number of users on a location is correlated by the number of employees in the company. Look at the industry types. You can use SIC codes, which is the standard industry classifications, and there's a plethora of that out there. And of course, geographic location. Do you want to target locally? Local companies are sometimes easier to service. Do you want to be by city, by state, or nationally? Make sure you can get as much information as you can, phone and email particularly. If you can get things like LinkedIn profiles, even better. And of course, hold this information within a CRM platform as well. I've come across a company here, and I have no allegiance to them, but I find them pretty good. It's a company called bookmydata.com, and they have a dynamic data building service. It's US data, but you can pull up tens of thousands of records if you want, and you can pay as you go. And you've got phone numbers, URLs, email addresses, and contacts, and pretty good. They also guarantee a good delivery rate as well. So, one thing I would also advise is don't overthink targeting too much. A lot of marketing is common sense and use your initiative. A wider list is much easier to refine down than trying to refine a list that goes up. So a couple of other top tips, if you are, in terms of marketing your business, if you are going to contact people and you want to call them, you should email them all beforehand. So follow up to an email is obviously a better way of getting through on the phone. An email can be very inexpensive in terms of a reach to market. Also try and connect with local contacts on LinkedIn at the same time. Using a combination of the email, phone, and LinkedIn is an excellent way to generate business. Another area which, and a lot of people don't do this, is just calling your active customers. If you rang all your customers once a month and just said, are there any aspects of your IT that I could take a look at next month? You'd be quite amazed what people will say. Reporting and measurement is a very key one as well. I can't emphasize, if you find something that works, do more of it, but you've got to be able to measure it in the first place. So do make sure you report and measure your own activities and track leads. Make sure your CRM system's working. If you do diary forward or call forward, book appointments, booking, follow-up emails, make sure you've got a platform to support that. I want to move now a bit more into the sales process. This was a campaign actually done by McGraw-Hill Publishing many, many years ago, advocating as to why a company should be marketing their business. You're sitting in front of a buyer, and more often than not, they don't know who you are, they don't know your company, your products, what you do, what your record is, what you stand for, yet you want to sell something to them. So having that sort of presence in front of a customer is very important to understand that, if they're not aware of your business, you've got some work to do. The sales process itself, again, keeping this very simple, I always qualify the people that I'm working with, and I use an acronym called MAN, which is the money, the authority, and the need. So whenever you're talking to an inquiry, whether it's an inbound inquiry or a company you've been introduced to or happened across, first of all, identify the budget. So do they have a budget for the project you're talking to them about? Identify the decision-making process, and are you talking to the person that has the authority to place an order with you or to sign off on a budget? And most importantly, do they have a need? Trying to sell things to people where they don't want it, you're not going to go too far. So always remember to target the man. The sales cycle itself, again, there are many variations on this. This is a sales cycle that I've been involved with for many, many years. I won't dive too deeply into this at the moment, but suffice to say there are 5 key stages. The opening, which is your initial greeting, and if this is on the telephone, this could be a good morning, good afternoon. The fact finding, which is probably one of the most overlooked areas, which is really doing the discovery phase, identifying what the customer's needs actually are, which then flows into you've identified what their needs are. The proof stage is then reflecting back to the customer to show that your product or service or solution will meet their needs. And if you do that fact-finding, needs, and proof correctly, the close should automatically happen. You don't lead with price, don't lead with features. You've got to go through a process of getting to know the customer, build a relationship, and go through the fact find, and then hopefully the close will happen. I want to talk a little bit about more on the sales side. Sales is people think it's easy, but it's not. It's a dark art. It does have a certain binary process to it. But from a personal point of view, if you're in sales, there are 6 key attributes that you will need to develop for yourself or focus on. One is energy. It's exhausting. You've got to get up in the morning. You've got to go out and pound the streets, knock on doors, make those phone calls. That takes a lot of energy. You've got to love what you do, and this applies unilaterally within the whole technology space. You love technology. If you love sales, you love meeting people, you've got to be passionate about it. Focus is critical. It's very easy to get pulled away, and you can focus on lots of different areas and end up doing nothing. So just pick out a few things that work for you. Desire. This comes back to that I said about, if you are the owner manager and you're selling in your business, focus on your end game. Set yourself targets. Is money your objective? Is it a sense of fulfillment? Is it achievement? But you've got to have the desire there to do this. Discipline is a key one. If you're exhausted and tired and you've got to get up the following day and you've got to do the same thing over and over again, you've got to get used to handling rejection. It's not personal. You just got to get stuck in and you've got to keep going with it. And ultimately, grit. I do believe, the staying power. This comes back to the objections. You'll get a lot of barriers thrown at you. You've got to stick with it. You've got to hang in there, and eventually it'll come good. So I want to talk about, the sales formula. This is an area I think a lot of people overlook, which is, yes, it is a process. It is a bit of an art. It's not easy, but it is quite simple. So the formula for sales is not that. Don't worry. It's this. And what that basically means is it's 3 things: your activity level times your conversion rate times the order value equals your performance. And I want to deep dive a little bit more into this. This will vary from business to business, but the principles of this are exactly the same. So the first thing to do is to define what you mean by activity. So activities can be defined by meetings, perhaps an inbound lead or telephone calls, any quotations or proposals, or maybe a referral. So any of those would qualify as activity, and you need to define what those are. I believe personally that business is won and lost on the phone, and I think the telephone is a very good and easy way to measure response. So start with the phone. So if we focus on cold calling as one example, which I know is, not a lot of people like it, but nonetheless it's an extremely effective way of driving business. So the formula for that, let's take a performance goal. Let's say you want to aim for $240,000 a year of annualized MMR from new business. So you've got to look at the 4 levels within that in terms of conversion rates, which I'll explain. Let's assume, say, a small order value of $20,000 a year, which is $1,500 a month. In order to get to that, I worked out you need to make about 1,600 phone dialings to achieve that. I'll explain this. So if you work on the 4 levels of conversion rates, when you pick up the phone and you dial a decision maker, typically 20% of those dialings you'll actually get through to somebody. Of the people that you speak to, about 10% of those decision makers will probably agree to meet with you and hold a meeting. Of the meetings that you attend, you should get somewhere in the region of 75% of those resulting in a quotation or a proposal. And let's assume that you would convert 50% of the deals that you quote for. Should be higher. All of that, by the way, in terms of conversion rates, can be significantly enhanced with good social media engagement, referrals, and regular marketing. But if you work on those assumptions and the conversion rates, if your goal is to achieve $240,000 a year, your average order value is $20,000. You close half the deals you quote for. you're going to need 12 deals, which is $20,000 divided by 240,000. Pretty simple. On the basis of you converting 50% of the deals you quote, you're going to need 24 deals to be quoted. So in order to get 24 quotes, you need to set 32 meetings, because 75% of those will result in a quote. And in order to get to 32 meetings, you're going to need to reach 320 decision makers, because 10% of those people that you speak to will agree to meet. And in order to get to 320 decision makers, it'll take you about 1,600 dialings, as you will get through to only 20%. So if you take that as a summary of the formula, 1,600 dialings times your conversion rate times $20,000 will equal 240,000. And that's a formula that I would recommend to any business, is try and work out, particularly your order values and conversion rates. And if you work it backwards from your target and your budgets, you'll be able to work out your activity levels. So a quick summary of what we talk about. I think keeping it simple, that's my main message. I like simplicity. Build a sales and marketing toolkit. Make sure that you know who you're going to target. This is one of the most crucial things, is know who your customer actually is. Create some differentiated propositions. It can be difficult, but I think it's important that you have a very clear proposition. Get your basics done very well. Keep on top of that sales process. Focus on your attributes. Develop that energy, that desire, and the passion. Work on your sales formula and work out your activity levels from that. Have fun and keep going. I think at the end of the day, this is a great market full of opportunity. I think any MSP deserves to be successful, but it takes a bit of effort to get there. So finally, Doug mentioned to me an offer or something to leave behind with you guys. So my offer to you is, I've covered probably a fair amount here, and I've sort of kept it fairly brief, but if any of these areas are of interest, I'd be very happy to give a 1-hour session to deep dive on any of these aspects in the webinar on a one-to-one basis with you. So very happy to do that, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so Pierce, thank you. That was there was a lot of information. I think it was definitely good information, and as you said, I think your special offer to kind of deep dive into one of those areas is a great offer for anyone who's watching or attending this. If you have questions now, please do utilize the Q&A, and we'll go through your questions as they come up. One of the things I liked was the MAN, the MAN formula, right? It's the money, authority, and need. Is that what it is?
Yes, it is.
Remember that correctly? Okay, yeah, it's because that one, it's simple, right? So when you're talking to someone, if it's a business owner or CEO, whatever, identify, do they have the money, do they have the authority to buy, and do they have the need to buy what you're selling? Now, obviously, you can identify the need first, but you really do. It's that simple. I've been around software and technology sales for a number of years. And those are the basics that everyone teaches. And I think a lot of us sometimes forget that is, we're talking to somebody and they identify a need, but they have no authority and no access to the money. So now you got to work your way up the chain. And sometimes it can be effective if you find someone who's identified a need, if they become your champion and walk you into some opportunities. But it's always best to kind of start at the top and then it makes it an easier sales process.
To add to that, Doug, it's quite an interesting point you've raised, because I think the psychology of selling is you have to be pretty thick-skinned to be in sales, and you have to accept the fact that you're going to get a lot of rejection, and most people don't like rejection. So to be engaged with somebody who's about to say no to you is quite a daunting prospect. So sometimes it's easier to deal with somebody lower level in the company who will then pass your proposal on to somebody else to look at it. But if you're dealing with a tough buyer, a tough, aggressive business owner, it's quite daunting. But nonetheless, I absolutely agree. I think you have to sit with the right decision makers. If you're a business owner, don't feel afraid of asking awkward questions. Don't be afraid of asking for the order. If they say no, ask them why. Part of the whole process is understanding the objection handling as well. But as I said, if you go through that sales cycle, the fact finding, the needs, and the proof, generally, if you've done that correctly and your solution fits exactly what they want, they're kind of boxing themselves into the answer, and the close should happen automatically.
Yeah. No, I know the focus of this was kind of, this idea of kind of back to basics. And, I guess, because you work with MSPs, is this something that a lot of them have forgotten or maybe, or don't know with the clients that you're working with? I mean, do you kind of have to start here with all of them? Or do some of them just maybe fall short in one area and they just need some extra help there?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, I meet a lot of MSPs, and you look at the origins of the company, and a lot of MSPs have originated out of a break-fix business or general sort of computer support, and a lot of it's been based from a technology point of view. So it might be somebody who was working in an IT environment for a company, and then decided they want to go and do their own thing, and they go and do it from a technology point of view. They find a piece of technology they really like. Not many people approach it specifically from the business and the front end, which is to be a sales and marketing person in technology. So I think it depends on the two. Often I find it's not that some people have forgotten this, but some people just don't know. And I'm a great believer you don't know what you don't know. So my skill and expertise, I believe, is around sort of sales, marketing, front end of a company. My less competent area is probably my technical ability.
Okay.
So if you turn that around and said, I mean, I'm scared of technology in the sense of, I wouldn't know how to configure platforms, quite overwhelming. But equally, somebody who's very familiar with that might not be familiar with the whole front end in terms of sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And when you start your own business, there are no rule books. No one tells you what to do. It's up to you. And I think companies that lead with technology can only get so far with that. And then you need to pivot and become more of a commercial sales and marketing business. So it's a combination of people who don't know what they're doing, which is these sorts of things are education. I don't mean that condescendingly, but it is
a lot of MSPs, they enter this from the technology side because they're sick of working for someone else and want to go into business for themselves. They know how to fix things. They know how to configure things, but they may not have the sales and marketing experience. And that's not wrong. It's something you got to pick up.
Absolutely, and in the same way of running a business. I mean, we're all business owners and entrepreneurs, and running a business is not easy. You've got the sleepless nights worrying about cash flow, and you've got payroll, and you've got staff, and you've got customers. It's a really hard gig. So you've got to be able to develop a more rounded approach to your business. And I think I always say good businesses have marketing at the core of them. Every time you speak or engage with a customer, that's a marketing touch point.
So speaking of marketing, we actually have a question here from the audience. Do you have any tips on how to decide how much money you should spend on marketing, social media, SEO, web, those types of things? Is there a common formula?
There is when you're established. So there are metrics at which you put into a profit and loss account. So you'd apply anywhere between sort of 5 to 15% of your total P&L you could apply to marketing. Depends on your business. At the level that I sort of engage with MSPs, a lot of them are new to the marketing journey. So if you don't have a well-trodden marketing path already, then my approach to it would be, first of all, decide an amount of money you're prepared to risk. So if you're prepared to risk $1,000, $5,000, $50,000. So that would be the first thing, is identify your own risk profile. The second part is then to decide and figure out what your return on that investment would be and over what period of time. I believe every marketing dollar should generate at least 5x. So if you're going to spend $5,000, you want to be able to generate 25,000 back. And again, if you think about, go back to that analogy I said, the sales formula. So if your average contract value is, say, $20,000, what would you be prepared to pay to land a $20,000 contract? I meet lots of lead generation companies that will charge you several $1,000s a month. But of course, if you get the right message to the right person at the right time, and you're able to convert a deal, that should pay for itself almost immediately. So it comes down to how comfortable you are with marketing as a process and a concept, and then how much you want to risk on it. And the more you can then start to, I mentioned this thing about measurement, it's so important. Do a lot of sort of, hyper-targeted campaigns, a lot of social stuff. But the danger with sort of digital social media is it's more often than not, you're not really measuring proper lead and proper business engagement. You might be measuring likes or page views or click-through, but to take that a next step on is a whole different level. I mean, just because you've got a name and address, that doesn't mean it's a lead.
Yeah. Well, I think the other danger of social media, and not danger, but like you said, in trying to count these things is, if you have a public profile, like maybe it's on Twitter or even Facebook, who is it that's liking it? Because if you're trying to focus locally and you're getting 1,000 likes from all over the world, that's not going to help you grow your local business, right? If maybe you're sending out, you're trying to be funny and sending out memes and those types of things, and it's generating a lot of likes. But who cares, because it's not your target customer. It's not the profile you want to reach.
Well, you can do some degree of geo and industry targeting. So from a location point of view, you can actually have your messaging only in certain areas geographically on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But come back to the basics. I mean, I think the bit of advice I'd ever always give anyone on social media is, once you engage, you can't stop, because if you do stop, people will question it. You'll lose your momentum. So you've got to be prepared to carry that through. So if you are blogging and posting, commenting, you've got to keep consistent with that and keep it going. And it's quite overwhelming at times. It's a lot of work involved in writing a blog and putting a podcast together and doing webinars. So I would tread gently. I wouldn't just dive in and look at that as an immediate route to market. Look at the simple things. I mean, one of the most cost-effective, in fact, it's free, actually, is looking at word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Writing to all your customers and just saying to them, can you introduce me to somebody? We want more customers like you. And, word of mouth marketing is so powerful. So, if you look at your customer base, look at the people that you've engaged with, and even with prospects, if you're talking to prospects, just say, do you know anybody else who might benefit from talking to us? That referral opportunity is very, very big. Word of mouth is so powerful. And I think increasingly in a world where privacy is becoming important, having a personal introduction is a really key thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
definitely agree.
It costs you nothing, having advocates around you. I've actually just I put a post onto LinkedIn yesterday about creating what I call a business ecosystem around you. So there are 30 different sources I've identified where you could find word of mouth marketing, which most of the marketing agencies won't tell you about because they don't make any money out of it. But it's free.
Yeah. I think another area, like you said, just, talk to your vendors. One of the things that I know people talk a lot about, sometimes is, what are called MDF in the industry, which is marketing development funds.
Mm-hmm.
And some of your vendors, they may be willing to help you with some of the marketing if you're going to bring them contacts, and maybe they'll bring you some contacts as well. So it's always another area to look at. Reach out to your vendors.
Absolutely, and the stronger the relationships you've got with those vendors, the better. I mean, so just getting good engagement with reps and marketing teams. As you say, there's a lot of MDF money out there, so they tend to be a bit. And actually, some of the vendors, the majority, will actually only give it to the people who ask for it. I'm a great believer: if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think.
But if you don't know if it's available, then you don't ask. So that's kind of why I always like to talk about the fact that, hey, talk to your vendors. They may have some funds and some help that's available to you don't even know about.
Absolutely, and play one off against the other. Just say, well, vendor A, they're happy to help me and pay for something, and vendor B, you're not. Who am I going to go with?
Great. Well, I don't have any more questions from the audience. Any closing words here? Before we.
Well, I think coming back to I like things to be simple, and actually sale business is pretty simple. I mean, it's if you can buy something for less than you're selling it for, you'll probably make money out of it. So buy low, sell high, pay late, collect early. I mean, that's the basic premise. You'll be successful. But running a business is not easy. But I do believe sales and marketing, keep things simple. Be consistent. Know what your message is, know who your target audience is, and then engage. Action is the key to it.
Great. So you've got your contact info up there. Venator.tech is the website. Piers.mummery at Venator.tech is your email. You got your phone number. I'm sure you're pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. How many Piers Mummeries are there?
One.
Okay, so you're the only one. So it should be easy to find you on LinkedIn. And people can see what you just talked about, the post you made yesterday. So ways for people to connect with you. And again, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks to our sponsor, Cloudberry Lab. for MSP backup. If you are interested in that, take a look at cloudberrylab.com. And I thank everyone for attending, and thank you very much, Piers, for a very informational session.
Well, thank you as well, Doug, and thank you to the attendees. Very enjoyable.
All right, have a great day, everyone.